What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So we're back here again where we started, where I said that Gotham Knights at 30 FPS was fine. And you guys know how that turned out for me. You know, I was called all kinds of names on the internet, even though it was one of those things where I kind of knew we'd come full circle because science, if you actually follow its tenets and principles, and sometimes even mix with art, you can probably guess very easily how things will turn out. It's not rocket science anyways. You know, gamers, that's the beauty of gaming. Just sit down and watch. Eventually, if you're actually patient enough to understand how things go, you can almost predict the future. Hellblade Senua Saga is now going to launch at 30 FPS on console. Now, there are a lot of different opinions. There's also the news that the director of the studio, one of the founders of the studio, has also left. But honestly, bro, that news to gamers right now is nothing compared to the 30 FPS and 60 FPS debacle. Let's just call it what it is. Gamers are probably more interested in arguing about this on Twitter. I'm not saying gamers overall, don't get me wrong. I know there are real gamers out there who you couldn't care at all what in the world is going on. However, I want to make sure that every time we have this conversation, I come back and I put a pin in this, because I remember clearly saying that the technology in our consoles currently sold to us is not necessarily the reality when you think about how video games are in terms of scale, design, and even what the industry and developers are actually used to dropping. So with that in mind, I think it's very important that we go back to Richard Ledbetter's article that he wrote on Eurogamer. And this article will resonate very well. It was published on the 26th of October 2022. And this article, I think, was right at the heels of Gotham Knights. Gotham Knights really did, spur on this particular conversation. A lot of people on the internet, Nick Tech, some other trolls, they made money off of this in actually complaining about the 30 FPS paradigm, comparing it with other games in terms of visuals, not necessarily paying very close attention to exactly what was going on. Last week, we saw the release of two new games that do not support 60 frames per second gaming on PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X consoles. It's as if this article was written about Dragon's Dogma and perhaps some other game that's going to be coming very soon. A Plague Tale Requiem was doing 40 FPS. For them to get 60 FPS, they had to go nuke the rats in the game. And so on and so forth. The argument continues to go on. And at the end of the day, they basically went ahead to say that at the end of the day, if performance is something that you want, the PC platform will always be there for you. In the console space, I've seen a lot of people basically argue that somewhere, somehow, that the standard should be 60 FPS. I can understand that you think this should be the case, but here's one thing about this whole conversation, and I hate to be the person that's constantly saying it. Just because you think it should be doesn't mean that it will be, because there are limitations in what it is that you're saying. Because, say, one game is capable of achieving 60 FPS and the way the game is designed is capable of doing it, doesn't mean that every other game or any other game is going to be able to get that done. And this is why I've always recommended that a lot of people who are actually, in my opinion anyways, concerned about this, need to make the shift to a PC. There is nothing stopping you from doing so. You guys can see that even with backward compatibility, you still get the best, I would say, in my opinion, the best possibility overall. I fired up Arkham Origins yesterday to play on the new GPU that I bought. You guys remember I've been doing this $650 build and talking about it, and I just basically upgraded the $650 build, by the way, and now it's at $661, and it beats the PS5 and the Series X, both of them for that price point. Seeing that you're going to pay more for your games and seeing that you're going to apply for or get PS Plus or whatever it is, you still have, in my opinion, what I think is a better machine in many facets, and factually a better machine in gaming, if you get what I mean. Like, it's a better machine in different facets, and I say my opinion because a console can't even do those things. Like, a PC can do things that a console can't do, so we can't even compare them. That's why I say, in my opinion, a better machine, because I take the comparison and I take it 20-0. Then I add the fact that you still can do better in gaming. I went ahead and upgraded that GPU, by the way, to a 6750 XT, and I was able to pretty much, destroy what I think any console right now in this generation is going to bring. And even as we move on, the PlayStation 5 Pro is still not going to be able to touch it, because these consoles, they have to be made cheap in a sense and still sold to you at a loss. So again, the marketing also has to kind of, goad you into having some kind of faith in them, because at the end of the day, this is basically what the, manufacturers want. They want you to kind of believe that, this is something that, has a way or a means of breaking the barrier or breaking the mold or whatever it is. Not until they actually go ahead and just make a full-blown PC are we going to be able to see that they have what it takes to be able to do it. So here's the thing. This whole game development paradigm for a while, right? Every single studio and every single, developer already has, for the most part, their pipelines established. There also is the aspect of basically getting the game done to you as, getting the game to the audience as best as they possibly can, to also sit there and also make money. You can sit there and optimize a game to run at 60 FPS. You can basically make any game run at 60 FPS. That's basically the reality. I'm not saying that, some games cannot run at 60 FPS. No. You can build any game to run at 60 FPS. The problem, though, is the industry is fighting against itself. Everybody wants to one-up everybody. So scale always obliterates 60 FPS as a concern, because there's a threshold where you get to, your game can no longer do 60 FPS on a console, regardless of what kind of, maybe I would say visions or dreams you had. And because the guy next door did it, the other guy wants to do it. And because Bandai Namco did it, because Capcom did it, and I'm talking about Elden Ring and Dragon's Dogma, behold, you're going to see the next open world, third-person RPG game that has all this stuff eventually come out from the third guy. And he's going to try to one-up everybody. And in this, case of constant wanting to one-up everybody, games eventually scale to the point where you can't necessarily get these games to run very well on a console. So for those of you who may be looking at this particular paradigm, and this is not for everybody. Some people, you're fine playing on your console. You don't really care. Some people have said, if it's not 60 FPS on console, I'm not going to play it. That's fine. That's your choice. I'm not saying that you must accept something that you don't want to accept. I'm just talking to those who say this is of primary importance to me. Why are you still sitting with an Xbox Series X, and why are you still sitting with the PlayStation 5? The cost is no longer the problem, because I've broken it down in many ways. I've seen people give all kinds of different caveats and excuses. Even some people started giving some excuses like, oh, well, some people are going to break stuff when they try to build a PC. My guy, the stuff is just so straightforward that I'm sure many people who are able to handle a controller, change a battery on a controller, be able to do some simple tasks like change a car tire, can build a PC. This is not rocket science. So it's no longer an excuse. And I don't think anybody sitting there and complaining and shouting is going to make any difference. Instead, you need to basically take charge of your gaming, because you can basically do it. You can pretty much put aside, a lot of what it is that these companies may promise and not deliver on, and be the one that actually dictates how you do your gaming. That's what the PC platform is for. So seeing a lot of these, conversations about Hellblade, in my opinion, I think for a moment there, I was about to say, well, there's some understanding here that could be had, but I'm not really interested in actually giving much in terms of that understanding, other than just saying, at this point, anybody who may be still making these complaints, you have to understand that that ship sailed. The moment you're actually talking about those complaints, the ship has sailed, simply because the developers have already made the game, and the game is 30 FPS. There really is not going to be much that they want to go do, except the game sells phenomenally, of which Hellblade is somewhat of a niche game, so I don't necessarily see, a performance mode anytime soon. It could show up. They did it with Redfall, right? So, you never know. Hellblade might get a performance, modification that gives you better FPS. But for now, if you want to basically sidestep that squabble, I think everybody knows what to do. So thanks for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.